Well, a major face-off has broken out between India and China after the Chinese authorities issued stapled visas to 3 Indian athletes hailing from Arunachal Pradesh, triggering nationwide outrage. Well, it is pertinent to mention here that of the 12-member wushu Indian team, China has issued staple visas to only 3 players who hail from Arunachal Pradesh ahead of the World University Games in the city of Chengdu. Notably, the 3 players, namely Neiman Wangsu, Onilu Tega and Mepun Lamgu, were supposed to travel with the rest of the wushu team to Chengdu on July 26. However, their visas were delayed. Well, the Chinese embassy issued them stapled visas, which are visas that are attached to separate piece of paper instead of stamped the visa directly on the passport. Well, as a mark of protest, the Indian wushu team has opted out from the games. Well, it may also be mentioned here that this is not the first time that China has issued staple visas to Indian citizens from Arunachal Pradesh. In fact, athletes from the state were denied visas to China in the past too. For instance, in the Asian Karate Championships in the year 2011 and the Youth World Archery Championship also in 2011. Well, to discuss this big issue today, we will be connecting with eminent personalities and also locals from Arunachal Pradesh. All right, to know more, we are being joined live with Mr. Swaran Singh, Professor of Jawaharlal Nehru University and one of the India's top China experts. So, Mr. Singh, welcome to Northeast Live, first of all. All right, I also have with me Mohanto Panging, who is joining us live this evening and from Pasighat. And also let me tell our viewers here that he is the former Indian Air Force pilot. So welcome to Northeast Live, Mr. Panging. All right, so first of all, let me go to Mr. Swaran Singh. So, Mr. Singh, the move by the Chinese authorities to issue staple visas to Indian athletes has triggered outrage not only across the nation, particularly the people of the Northeast. So, first of all, your take on this, Mr. Singh.
I think, first of all, this is not a good sign from the Chinese side. You would remember only 3 days back, there was discussion between India's National Security Advisor and Wang Yi in Johannesburg, from where it came out that in last November, Indian Prime Minister, when he met in Bali, Chinese President Xi Jinping had actually expressed a desire to resolve mutual relations without advertising it much, which would create expectations. That means India was very seriously looking for resolving the relationship, which has been tense for over last 3 years after the Galwan incident of June 2020. Now, suddenly this fairly irritating, and you can see the response from India. The entire contingent is being withheld right now, is a response which is expected. And as you mentioned in the opening remarks, this is not the first time, and Chinese knew how India is going to respond to such a gesture from their side to issue stapled visas to 3 of the sports persons who were going for these wushu tournaments in China, in Sichuan. So knowing fully well how India will respond, I think this was not a very wise way of dealing with this situation. And let me quickly add that it is not just Chinese. The event is being actually held under the auspices of Asia's Olympic Council, and therefore, it's an international body which also should be consulted and has a say in how a country can bring in its own bilateral whims and fancies in treating international sort of athletes who are coming to join an international event. It's not a Chinese event, it's a multilateral international event, and I think China has to be careful as to what the Olympic Council will think of it, and India should approach Olympic Council as well as to whether this is the correct way to bring in your bilateral whims and fancies into a multilateral event like this. You would also remember very recently, India invited the Foreign Minister of Pakistan into a multilateral meeting. So multilateral meetings are usually different and they have different protocols and expectations compared to bilateral issues that countries may have had. I think it's fundamentally not a good gesture right now. particularly when India is expecting President Xi Jinping to come and join the G20 summit meeting in early September. This was the time one would, make gestures of finding resolution to tensions and irritations, and bring in the positive element in the relationship. So I think it's a kind of not a good gesture right now, and India has taken a correct response to how to deal with it.
Right, Dr. Singh, and this is also not the first time. Earlier also China has done something similar in the year 2011.
Indeed. So that is exactly what I was underlining, that since Chinese had done something similar in 2011, twice actually in 2011,
yes,
and they knew how India is going to respond to a kind of a decision like this, to issue stapled visas to 3 of the athletes in the entire contingent. And India would sort of respond the way India did in last instances. So it's not that they were not aware of how India is going to respond to this, and still they decided to, go ahead and do the same thing. I understand that India's Ministry of External Affairs has already called the ambassador of China to come and explain this. So I hope some resolution happens in time, so that athletes who've been working so hard to go and perform in these events, they should not be penalized because some country has some unusual understanding of how they want to deal with these issues. Here is a matter of sports, and sports are something which should not be part of politics, and therefore I think they should be allowed to go and perform. And the onus then lies on China how to make sure that something they have done is rectified, and that they are issued normal visas to go there as Indian citizens and participate in those games, which are international games. I am underlining repeatedly. It's not something that Chinese nationally are holding, inviting India as a bilateral guest. It's an international event, and therefore I think they have to really know how to make sure that all international athletes are able to join and then perform as they have been preparing for these events for a long time.
All right, Dr. Singh, we'll come back to you. Now, let me go straight away to Mohanto Panging, who is joining us from Pasighat. Well, Mr. Panging, well, a major face-off has broken out between India and China after this move. And also, this is not the first time. Well, earlier also in the year 2011, China did the same thing. So, this such kind of move also frustrates the sports person.
Absolutely right. And I am myself a victim of this China's antic action. In 2012, as a part of a larger delegation, when I was posted to Northeast as a Chief Operations Officer, we are going as a 30-member delegation to China on an official visit. Now, till the last minute, everything was okay. And in the last minute, they said that I belong to Arunachal Pradesh. So I believe they said that he doesn't require a visa to come to China. And that is how the discussion took place in the Ministry of External Affairs. The then government didn't take a strong stand. They dropped 15 of us and allowed remaining 15 to go on the delegation to China. Now thereafter, there was hue and cry as to why you allowed part delegation by dropping 15 members and allowing the remaining to go to China. Now, this was indirectly acknowledging that Arunachal travel as part of an official Indian delegation. But presently, the present government is strong, and they have taken a very strong decision in calling off the entire event. And that's why I salute the present government for their strong decision making. China has been trying this antics for so long. They are renaming places in Arunachal Pradesh with their own names. They keep claiming Arunachal Pradesh, they keep issuing staple visas, or they say that Arunachal is there. But how can you claim China as Arunachal without asking the people from Arunachal? Let the people of Arunachal say this. We are culturally, racially, traditionally, historically, we are different from the Chinese. The Chinese cannot keep claiming Arunachal Pradesh as their part without asking the people of Arunachal Pradesh. And I myself belong to Arunachal Pradesh. I served in the Indian Armed Forces. I myself was a victim in 2012. And I hope the Indian government takes some strong step, and we should start doing staple visa to citizens of Tibet and Xinjiang in a tit-for-tat action.
Right. Yes, all right. We'll come back to you, but let me go straight away to Congress leader 𝗍𝗏𝗡𝗏 now over the phone line. So 𝗍𝗏𝗡𝗏 is joining us over the phone line. Welcome to Northeast Live, Mr. 𝗍𝗏𝗡𝗏. So this move by the China has outraged the entire nation, particularly the people in Northeast. So your take on this,
Good
Mr.
evening.
𝗍𝗏𝗡𝗏, yes.
Yeah. Good evening, Priya. As my younger brother, Mr. Pankaj himself, was just saying, he's also one of those victims who had, staple visas. Now, when I was a member of parliament or even a former union minister, then also I used to always raise the issue that if we are Indians, we are supposed to be ministers here in the cabinet. And now also the Indian government has, of course, they are trying their best to keep good relations with China. China has always something under its sleeves, and we always have to face them, right from when they had with the 𝗃𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧 and Mr. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, when they say the 𝗃𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧, when they say 𝗃𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧, there is something very much discreet which they keep. And in this issue also now, when we have all the good relations, all the, you can say, when we speak about the trade relations, when we speak about the economy, the amount of economy the Indian government has, the imports of China are much more than that of the exports of India. So, in fact, we are one of the main markets, and this is the way they treat us. That is very unfortunate. Always I have raised this issue. I think Mr. Kiren Rijiju was there, Mr. 𝗃𝗀𝗀𝗧𝗏 was there. We always raised it. Mr. Takam Sanjay was there. We had always raised this issue that the staple visa has to be done away with. Because, let me be very frank, when we are part of India, our whole government is with us. The local policy, the Act-East policy, all depends only on the Northeast, that is in, especially from Arunachal Pradesh. So when we are the people of Arunachal Pradesh are so positive, we are very much, nation-abiding citizens, and then they treat us like this. Imagine them giving stable visas to three of our spokespersons, which is, I think, really we condemned it, and we will not accept it. I don't know how the government of India is accepting this. I think we should vehemently condemn it, and we must not accept it. That's my view.
Right, so it was a 12-member team of the wushu players. Everybody got their visas, but only the 3 Arunachali players, they were given staple visas. So what does they mean by doing so? Because not only, this is not the first time. Earlier also they did such things during 2011, if you remember, Mr. 𝗍𝗏𝗡𝗏.
Yes, that is why at that time also I had raised that issue. Because I'll tell you very frankly, it is like I told you, it's a hidden agenda by the Chinese, because of the stake that they claim over Arunachal Pradesh. So if our government does not fight this, and we cannot, if our, External Affairs Ministry does not intervene, I think it is very unfortunate on our part, and it seems that even the Simla Pact that we had, the Panchsheel agreements that we had, all this goes to waste. So my take is that if at all India and China has to keep good relations, they must accept that Arunachal is a part of India, and we cannot accept the staple visa. And I don't think the Indian government also should have allowed any of this, our participants, they should boycott that, the wushu players who were supposed to go, they should boycott and say that if Arunachal is not going, then we are also not going. That kind of stand we have to take. If we don't, then it seems that we are at a back foot. So we have to be positive, and the whole nation has to be one.
Right, Mr. 𝗍𝗏𝗡𝗏, yes, please be with us. Now let me go again to Dr. Swaran Singh. So, Dr. Singh, after this move by the China, reactions came in from different quarters across the nation. Now, there are many eminent personalities. They are saying that India should also follow suit and provide staple visas to Chinese players and even delegates who visit India in the near future.
I think clearly the formal response that the Ministry of External Affairs has already publicized is to say that we reserve the right to respond in appropriate manner as and when we determine what that response will be. So fundamentally, there is definitely a commitment to response. Now, what that response will be known over a period of time, whether it is going to be, tit for tat issuing stapled visas to certain citizens of China in future, as is being suggested by my panelists, or it's going to be some other way. It's not necessary tit for tat. There are sometimes different ways of convincing the other side or compelling the other side to rectify the way of dealing with another nation or to comply with what India would like them to do for Indian citizens from Arunachal Pradesh. They are going there as part of India's wushu team. They're not representing a separate part of India. They're part of total India. And therefore, you can't treat them as part of India, which is to be treated separately. And India would not absolutely tolerate that. Now, what kind of that response will be known over a period of time, and maybe sometime response is such that it doesn't come in public very quickly. It may be known little later. But what I'm saying here is that response is being committed by Indian side already. As I said, there's a statement from Minister of External Affairs. But response may not necessarily be in terms of tit for tat of India beginning to issue similar staple visas, but response is definitely guaranteed, as former member of parliament also mentioned, and I think my co-panelist from Air Force also mentioned, there is a different India and there is a different response that we are noticing this time. The entire contingent was disallowed to board the flight, even from the airport. And I think that should be a good message to reach out to Beijing, and they should understand how to resolve this knot that they have tied around themselves. And, if they want to resolve issues, they have to make initiatives and untie the knots that they have sort of built around now on this issue. And I assume that some response from the Chinese side should be coming soon, so that, they don't miss out any part of the formal events that are going to take place there. And Indian participation is going to be noticed. India is very noticeable country now around the world. And therefore, India's absence will be noticed, not just in India, but around the world in that sense. I think Chinese have to be careful with the cost they may have to pay of making such a gesture, which is going to really be unacceptable to India.
All right, Dr. Singh, thank you so much for joining us this evening.